Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is January the 22nd, 2021, and today we are going to be taking a look at the coming Passover. This video, I have to tell you, I originally planned on it focusing on Jesus as our Passover. So we are going to touch on that, but it kind of took a turn. And the primary focus is going to be the Passover and the destructions that have happened to God's people in the past. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're starting off in Genesis at Sodom and Gomorrah. And the reason why I wanted to start here is because there are several comparisons made in Ezekiel 16 to us in our time, and we're compared to Sodom. So let's go ahead and see what's going on here. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom. This is where they came to Abraham. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. So Abraham is told, and the Lord said, Behold, the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it which is coming to me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Because he doesn't destroy the righteous with the wicked. Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy not and spare? Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, If I find 50 righteous men within the city, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous men within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there be 55, and they just narrow it down. He said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And so they went on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah. And of course they couldn't find 10 righteous men. They only found Lot and his family. So they took Lot and they carried Lot out, or they pretty much pushed him out the door. Which scriptures did I mark here? 19:1. Yeah, we're not going to read all of this because this story is so common that I think that all of you know the story. And then I went down to 24. So after he pretty much forced Lot out of the city, we know that the people were so vile that when the men came into the city, the men of the town all circled around Lot's house to get to the men to try and rape these men. And the only way that they would stop from tearing down the door and breaking in to get a hold of the men and rape them was the angels blinded them so that they couldn't see. And they were still while they were blind, feeling around, trying to get to the door. Here we go. Here it is right here. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. They're still trying to find the door, even though they can't even see. And the man said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-laws, and thy son and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke with his son-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get ye out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his son-in-laws. Finally he left the city. They pushed him out of the city, and fire and brimstone rained down. Hold on. And the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city that which grew upon the ground. So then we go to Exodus. Let's see. We're not going to go to Exodus. We're going to go to... I need to... Here we go. Let's see if it's right now. And the Lord said, we're going to go to Genesis. And I thought that I should put this in here because all of the earth knew God at this time. You can tell, even the heathen, though they had separated themselves away from the people of God, they knew who God was. You can tell that, they just weren't that far removed from Adam to where they wouldn't have known who God was. Or they would have had some vague knowledge of God. So it is a judgment against the people who have heard the truth, who know the truth and have turned away from it. So again, we're just going to breeze through this. Everyone knows these stories. I just wanted to touch on them briefly. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from off the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping things, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Okay. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy son's wife and thee, and every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. And Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so did he. And of course, chapter 7, oh, hold on a moment, I hit the wrong button, is the story of, it goes on to give details about how actually that was in chapter 6, how it rained for 40 days, 150 days, get caught in old habits. It rained for 150 days and flooded the earth, and except, of course, afterwards Noah and his family were saved. So let's move on to Exodus. And the Lord said unto Moses, yet will I bring... Now this one is the one that most closely fits us. This one has a Passover lamb, and it also has a sealing, which is exactly what happens to us. Let's read a little bit about what happens. We're not going to go into detail into this either, but let's go ahead. And the Lord said unto Moses, yet will I bring one more plague one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow his neighbor's. And I skipped something here. Let's go back here. It's out of order. When Moses is first called to go to Pharaoh, he's told, hold on a second. And the Lord, let's read it. And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return to Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh. He's just given him a couple of miracles to show Pharaoh. See that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, and he shall not let the people go. So he changed his hand white, and he gave him his rod turned into a snake. And thou shalt say to Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn son. So what he's saying here is that the people of God that have been chosen to deliver the message out to the nations are considered the firstborn. Just as you have a firstborn in your home who handles the religious affairs and takes care of the elderly of the house, they're given a double portion. Israel is considered the firstborn son. We are to handle the religious affairs, go out, take the truth to the nations, and that is part of the job that has been allocated to the firstborn. So he says, Israel is my firstborn son. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. And that's exactly what happened. So we can go back up now. So the 10 plagues have fallen, and he says, yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor. Jewels, we don't need that. Let's go on. And Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon the throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beast. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Okay, let's go on. Okay, let's go back. Hold on a moment, because I'm missing some scriptures. Just a moment. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so, speak ye until, this is the actual Passover. Speak ye unto all of the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbors next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the 2 sides of the post, and on the upper door post of the house wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh of it that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, and with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you. Okay. We don't need that. We'll go ahead and continue. So, that was all I had on that. But just to point out that there was a sealing, there was a mark that was given over the doorpost of the people, just as we are going to be sealed. There is going to be a mark. That seal is Sunday. That's the only seal that it really can be. Nothing else is logical. And I've thought about it, and there's just nothing else that has any logic to it. It has to be something that is seen, because the angels that come down and seal us and mark on our foreheads, if we should be so blessed, they have to see. There has to be something tangible that can be seen. It's not going to be a chip. This is not a sin. One of the studies, God willing, that I will have coming up soon is going to be what is sin. Because there's a lot of stuff that's just not a sin that people keep trying to cast people in hell for, and it's not right. Well, actually, this whole thing has come about. I will tell you, this whole study has come about because of this filthy doctrine of grace, of unconditional grace. The whole thing. I thought that I didn't like the rapture. I really, I just love the rapture when I sit it next to this doctrine of grace. It is one of the most filthy doctrines that I have ever heard in my life. And I couldn't understand it. I would watch the videos, and I remember watching a teacher, and he said it's one of those things where if you don't get it, you just don't get it. And if you can't get that part, then you can't work up to this part. And you can't get that part, then you can't work up to this part. And I didn't get it. And then I thought I finally understood it, and I actually did a works video. And in the works video, I kind of explained it the way that I thought that I understood it. But I couldn't think of a single example in my entire life. And so I had to look outside of my biblical life to try and find an example of the Holy Spirit working. And that, you know how I managed to understand was I skipped over everything this partnership that I have, or that we have with God in order to perfect ourselves. I skipped over all of that to the end, where I love the Lord. And so when the Holy Spirit speaks to me, I try to hear it to please him, as you would do for anyone you love. If you love a person, you want to please them. You don't go to their enemy and do the works of their enemy. It breaks my heart, this doctrine does. It's disgusting. It is profane. It is profane to say that you love God and that you freely go out and serve Satan. It's the double-minded man, and it disgusts me. So anyway, that's how this came about. That's how this came about, because I didn't understand it fully. Because I would watch video after video after video, and I couldn't understand. It was like a foreign language. I thought to myself, what good is it going to do me to go out there and quote scripture when I myself couldn't get it? How can I expect someone else to get it? So I'm going to, God willing, do a study that's going to take us all the way back to the beginning and explain the entire process of salvation so that you can see for yourself that there's not just a couple of scriptures in the Bible that support that you are to stop sinning and do the work, but the entire foundation for the Bible is to stop sinning. We would not be here if we would stop sinning. There would be no need for 6,000 years here if we would just stop sinning. If your foundation is the Bible, the foundation for the Bible is for us to stop sinning, and we do have the power to do it. There is nothing in our flesh that makes us sin. There is nothing that stops us from sinning other than the will to do so. That's it. Other than our constant fall for temptation. That's it. And if you don't believe me, all those people that are out there saying, no, you can't do it, no, you can't do it, ask them show them a fat person and ask them if they can stop. They'll change their tune real fast when it's not. You can pick out any number of things. Show them somebody who parties. Show them somebody who drinks. Show them somebody who does drugs. Any little thing, they will waver back and forth. I did that works video thinking that I understood it. And I sat back and looked and watched and waited for people's hearts to change. And as long as I have been a Christian, and I'm sorry I'm rambling, I know. But I got baptized in like December of 2006. And I have watched people walk away from God and walk away from God. And I just understood that's their choice. But when you're looking for God to change a person's heart, and the person comes to God, a filthy, sinning, drunken, partying, cussing, smoking, horrible person, and then suddenly they come to God, and now they're a filthy, drunken, horrible, mean, angry person, a Christian. Instead of a person, they're just a Christian. Then there's a problem with that. There's a problem with that, and it's offensive. It's offensive. This is an offensive doctrine. Anyway, that's how this has come about. So we're just trying to touch on the things. I'm sorry that I've talked so much, but maybe I'll edit it out. I have an editing software now. I don't know. We'll just go on. Okay, and I have seen also the prophets of Jerusalem, and horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of evildoers, that none doth return from his wickedness. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. I can't recall if I finished my story. I want to do the in-depth study because it was so difficult for me to understand this doctrine of grace, that it's difficult for me to fathom that if I just start throwing scriptures at people that they will understand, because I couldn't understand. I actually had to kind of step into it and accept it in order to fully understand what an abomination it is. I've never been offended by it before. I've always been offended by the rapture. That was like the worst to me. That was the worst. I had no idea. No idea what this doctrine taught. Not even a clue. Anyway, I've seen also the prophets in Jerusalem, and horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of evildoers, and none doth return from his wickedness. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts concerning the prophets, behold, I will feed them with wormwood. Oh, we don't need that. Let's go on. And the Lord has sent unto you all his servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, but ye have not hearkened, nor inclined your ear to hear. they said, "Turn ye again, now everyone from his evil way." I'm not sure why I put this in there. Let's just skip it. "For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughters of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown as in a moment, and no hand stayed on her." Oh, this is just examples of scriptures that apply to our Passover, the Passover of our times. So these scriptures they apply to us. And they said, "Turn ye again, now everyone from his evil way, and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land that the Lord has given you, and to your fathers forever. Go not after other gods and serve them." Let's go on. And I thought this one was good. We haven't really got into Lamentations, but here, this is the Lamentations after the overthrow. And it says, "For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughters of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown as in a moment, and no hand stayed on her." And we know that we get all 4 plagues. "And thine elder sister is Samaria." This is Ezekiel 16. This is right within our study. "And thine elder sister is Samaria, she and her daughters that dwell at thy left hand, and thy younger sister that dwelleth at thy right hand is Sodom, and her daughters. And yet hast thou not walked after their ways, nor done after their abominations, but as if that was a very little thing, thou hast corrupted more than they in all thy ways. When I shall bring again their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, then I will bring again the captivity of thy captives in the midst of them." Now I thought that this was essential to put in here, because I do believe in reincarnation, and I know that a lot of people do. And the common factor of these judgments has been that that's it for them. They don't get to come back, and they don't get to try again. Sodom went under a judgment. It says Samaria went under a judgment. We are considered, I just read a scripture, there are sisters or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But that's it for them. They don't get to come back and try again. So this is it for us. Those that fail here, the likely conclusion of these scriptures is that this is your final chance. This is your final judgment. You don't get another chance to come back and make it right. This is what the Passover is. The same thing for the people in Jesus' day. He says those people will come back. Some of those people are going to live. Some of those people were going to live. But those people who had to be driven out are part of that remnant, part of that small remnant. "When thy sisters, Sodom and her daughters, shall return to their former estate, and Samaria and her daughters shall return to their former estates, then thou and thy daughters shall return to your former estates." Again, calling them by their name at the time of their destruction. "Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city." Now we know that the crucifixion was all wrong about Jesus. Now, I do want to point out, when we went into Exodus, they were to bind that sheep up. I should have pointed it out when we read it. They were to bind that lamb up for 4 days. And that's exactly what they did to Jesus. Crucify, if you saw the previous study, they have altogether changed the definition of crucify. It means to bind. Let me see if I can find an example real quick. Hold on. I think it's in John chapter 4. Hold on. John chapter 19 is not 4. John chapter 19 and 20. Here we are. Crucify him, crucify him. Crucify right here. They've altogether changed the definition of cross, and they've also changed the definition of crucify. This only applies to Jesus. They changed it entirely. The correct definition for crucify is to subdue. This is why it can apply to the two criminals. It says in all 4 books that the 2 criminals were crucified with Jesus. None of them were impaled on a cross. They were all hanged on a cross, yes. Figuratively, to extinguish passions or selfishness, that's fine, because you're subduing those passions. But the proper definition is to subdue. They changed it. And it's very clear. It's very clear they changed it, because they weren't impaled. And if they had been impaled, why would they use such a word to describe them when they're saying crucify the flesh? Crucify your flesh. You're supposed to impale your flesh. Here we are. Where they crucified him and 2 others with him on either side, and Jesus in the midst. They were not taunted. They were not dragged through the mud or anything like that. They were just held. They were bound. Same thing with the lion. I know I didn't give very many examples of it for lion, but you can go through and look at the prophetic definition for yourself. Let's continue on. And spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. Let's read it from here. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. We've already explained what that means. And spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemning them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly. Not only those that are going to suffer the second death, but as an example of it for us the overthrow and the desolation of our country. Not exactly. It doesn't fit exactly, but it's close enough. Hold on a moment. Let's move on. And here we are. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. We know that earth is figurative for church. And so the heart of the earth was the crucifixion, which we're going to touch on a little bit later. So he was bound, just as the sheep was bound for 4 days. He was bound for 3 days and 3 nights. Where they crucified him and 2 others with him on either side, and Jesus in the midst. I didn't know I had put that in there. Now this is our time. In Ezekiel 5, it tells you about the destruction of the people. It touches first on the 144,000. And then it goes on and it tells you about the destruction of Jerusalem. In the third part of thee shall die with the pestilence, and with famine shall they be consumed in the midst of thee. And a third part shall fall by the sword round about thee. And I will scatter a third part into all the winds, and I will draw out a sword after them. And then here with the mountains, and if you recall, we originally started off as mountains as being of great religion, but this is actually a country. It's a religious country. And then it tells you about the destruction of this country. He that is far off shall die of the pestilence, and he that is near shall fall by the sword, and he that remaineth and is besieged shall die by the famine. Thus will I accomplish my fury upon them, and they shall know that I am the Lord. And then, of course, in Revelation. Now, if you look at the pattern of Revelation, you have the the first four, which are repeated throughout each group of sevens. And then you have the fifth, which is where we are here, where something good happens to the saints. In the fifth church, the church Smyrna is going to come back. They're going to come back as part of the tribe of Dan. The fifth seal is the judgment of the dead, where they receive their white robes. And then here we have the persecution that is going to come upon the people, but those that are sealed are going to be spared. And we also know that the sealed are going to have to be taken out before the destruction of the wicked. Well, let's go back there for a moment. Because then later on as we go down, wait a second, I'm too far. The sealed are up here. And then here, down here is where the first four plagues begin to fall. The four seals are set loose upon the people. The second one, of course, being martyrdom, where many of course, our people are going to die. But then the 144,000 are taken away. Revelation 18 is a destruction of the country of America. I'm not going to go over the order of Revelation right now. You'll have to watch the other videos to see that. And then 18:22, it says the voice of the harpers and the musicians and the piper. Oh, let's go. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harpers and musicians and of pipers and of trumpets shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And we know, and I might do a video on the last days, where we know that our undoing is going to be because of the pharma, because of the drugs that are going to be forced on other countries by America. That's going to be our undoing. And the mighty angel, just read that. Then I will cause to cease from the cities of Judah and from the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate. And then, of course, Jeremiah 25, where it gives us the 70 years of captivity is sentenced against us. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, and the sound of the millstone and the light of the candle. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment. And these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And after the 70 years are accomplished, then we go into the seventh trumpet. The sixth and seventh trumpet kind of run into one another. I'll go into that on another video. But if you've been following the studies, you see the pattern. I think that might be it. That's it. I just wanted to touch on that real quick to kind of set us up for the future videos that I want to do on Christ's role, and that points out his role as far as our Passover Lamb, because he is our Passover in the coming Passover / tribulation that we will have during our time. All right, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Until next time, bye.